Hello and welcome to the first lesson ever of English Chinese Characters, or ECC. This is the first lesson of Compilation 1, Episode 1, I guess, Lesson 1. And we are going to be learning 10 words today. I guess I'll tell you a little bit about what it is first. English Chinese characters are a way to read English with Chinese characters. So we're not learning Chinese. This has nothing to do with Chinese on some level, but it's a way for you to learn the logograms. But you're connecting it to English, and guess what? You already know English, right? If you're watching this, probably. So you can connect these characters to English words, and you can very easily read English sentences with the characters. And of course, we're going to do our best to make the characters very strongly correlate in meaning between the Chinese texts and the English texts. And we're going to use a lot of strategies to do that. It's going to be really fun and interesting, and you're going to learn a lot along the way. So first, let's begin with the word for I. And the word for I is going to be, the character for I should say, is going to be different than the character for me. And anything that is spoken or written in a different way in English, I, me, go, goes, man, men, things like that, they're going to be written differently as well. The characters will be different. So here's the character for I. It's a little complicated. You start in the top left, you do a strike, and then through the middle, and then down, and then you cut across, and then you do a big swoop, and then you cut, and then you do a little. The next character we're going to learn is the character for you, and this character is easier. First, please note this part on the left side, this two-stroked part. This is a radical, and a radical in Chinese is a part of the character that is sort of the root or base or provides a context or meaning. So this radical, and there are 214 radicals in Chinese, Chinese characters. This radical represents person. And note that the radicals have different forms. Sometimes they look very similar, but sometimes the forms can be kind of different. But the radicals are important. They're a good memory booster. If you remember characters in terms of their radicals, it will help you remember the character better. But also, it's good because it clues you into the history or these connections that people were making a long, long time ago. And so the connection between you and person is pretty obvious, right? You are a person, so it has a person radical. And then the rest of it, these strokes here, to me, looks like a panda face. So you can remember, you are a big panda, your friend is a big panda, big, big, big panda, you, panda. You see it has a nose, it kind of has drowsy eyes. The next character we're going to learn is the character for love. And this character brings up a very crucial, part of our ECC learning experience, because we are learning both traditional and simplified characters. We're doing this because, one, it's going to give you access to reading and deciphering Chinese texts that are written in either traditional or simplified characters. Makes sense. But we're also doing this because we need to. English has so many words, so many syllables, so many morphemes, right? Parts with meaning, that we need both simplified and traditional characters. In fact, we probably need even more than that, right? We're going to have, who knows what we're going to do as we go on. But we have English's history has already laid out what we need to do with this. It's a Germanic language that was infused with a lot of French and Latin and Greek. And those, words and word parts are very different. The Germanic parts are generally shorter. They're more common often. And the more Latin-based ones are more luxurious, right? That's a good example, luxurious. They're longer. They're less common, typically. So great, simplified characters will go to the Germanic-based words, typically, or more frequent words at least, and the traditional characters will go to more Latin-based ones. So you think love, oh, that's a very simple, common word, German-based. we're going to give it a simplified character. Wrong. We're going to give it a traditional character, and we're doing it for poetic reasons. So we are creating something here, and we want to create something not only useful and practical, but also something beautiful. And the traditional character for love is more poetic. It has a heart in it, right? The joke being that the Communist Party of China, which, created, ultimately through its order, or at least implemented the simplified version, they took the heart out of the Chinese writing. But we must thank them so much because simplified writing is so interesting in and of itself, and we wouldn't be able to do ECC without it, right? So we're very grateful to them. That said, we want a heart in our traditional character because that's cute. We want a heart, okay? So if you'll notice this part in the middle, it's a heart. It almost looks like it has chambers, right? It has these 3 drips, sort of contouring it, and then it has this L, this sort of like bulky body to the heart. So if you visualize it, it looks like a heart. And so yeah, that's love. The simplified version would not have that piece, and we would use the simplified version for words like amity or amicable. It would probably represent am, right? The Latin-based. But yeah, we'll get to that another day. Great, so that's love. So now I'm going to show you your first sentence. What does this mean? Take your time, pause it if you need. It means I love you, right? Oh, I love you too, right? Very nice. So you can write that to your friend or family, or your cat, or your dog, or your fish, or yourself, right? You can do that. So great, you can write English Chinese characters. Yay! The next word we're going to learn is the word for sit, because what else would naturally come after the word for love? But yeah, we want to pair verbs with pronouns right now, right? We want to make easy sentences for you. And sit is a great character because it looks like sitting. Like, it looks like 2 people sitting on a chair, right? Or it looks like 2 butt cheeks on a chair, right? It's very simple. Sit, right? Sit, sit, sit. And now we're going to learn the character for draw. This is another example of when the traditional simplified dichotomy really helps us in crafting ECC. Chinese doesn't really differentiate the spoken language between drawing and painting. They pretty much have one word to mean both. So English always differentiates between the two. So it's a great time where we can take the simplified version, assign it to draw, and we can take the traditional character and assign it to paint, right? Because draw is more frequent, or cognitively more basic or prototypical on some level, right, than painting, which is more specific or intricate. So draw, this is it. You can think of it as a table with maybe a piece of paper divided into quadrants on top of it. Pretty simple, draw. And the character for paint is more complex. It has this trident on top. I think of it as a trident, and then it fully finishes, and again on the bottom there is this 4-quadrant radical that we saw in the previous character for draw, and a line underneath it. So just be careful, there's only a line under this one, whereas draw has a sort of 3-lined encasement. The next character we're going to learn is the character for the word and, A-N-D, as in you and I. This character is made up of 2 different radicals. It's important to note that I've been instructed by a Chinese professor that there's only 1 radical per Chinese character. But for English Chinese characters, we can change that because we're inventing a new way of looking at things. And for us, any of the 214 radicals, when they are found within a character, no matter their position, so long as they are identifiable in the form that is their radical form, they can be considered a radical. Therefore, any particular character could have 2 radicals or 3 radicals, maybe. So that's different from what's traditionally taught. But I think it's practical in learning to read and write, because as you'll see in this character, there are 2 parts that seem very equal. They're equal in size, in prevalence. So we're going to say that there are 2 radicals. And the radical on the left actually represents wheat, and you can sort of visualize that if you look at it. And then the radical on the right, the square, represents mouth. And it's a character in and of itself, if it were alone, but it's also a radical. A lot of times the radicals look exactly the same as a character that is what the radical represents also. So here, wheat and mouth, they go together, right? A mouth eats wheat, a wheat gets eaten by a mouth. So you can think of the word and, Andy, and, you and I. Wheat and mouth, right? It's kind of fun. And here is our next sentence. Look at it. What does it say? It says, you and I draw. You and I draw. Very good. Getting the hang of it. The next two characters are very simple. They look like what they are. We have first up. It's pointing up. 3 strokes, very simple. 1, 2, 3. It's pointing up. And we have down. Very simple. Pointing down. 1, 2, 3 strokes. Up and down. And now, our next word is the word for go, another important word. And go, to me, kind of looks like a person. You have these long arms, you have a waist, and then you have legs angled with a foot pointing down like someone's running, someone's on the go. So this is the word for go. And in our next sentence, do you know what it says? I go up and you go down. Now, of course, if a Chinese speaker saw this, it would not match their grammar in their language, and they would probably be confused. But if you explain to them, oh, this is someone using your characters in another language, if they put their mind to it, I would wager that what you are saying in English is what they would pick up. That's what they would infer from it. Because a lot of the differences would just be a matter of order, or maybe, maybe some different characters, but related to the meaning that relates to the character they would use instead, like all these little sort of intricacies. But I do think people would be surprised that this could work. This could work to a large extent. Now we've reached a point at the end of the traditional lesson. There's actually going to be a quiz at the end of this video, so please stay tuned and sort of go through the quiz and test yourself to see if you remember what the characters are and what the sentences mean. But before we get to that quiz portion in all of our lessons, we're going to finish the lecture portion with an actual Chinese sentence. So this is a time when I show you a sentence that would be grammatical and expressed in actual written Chinese. Maybe someone would, write this in an instant message, or who knows when, right? And what's interesting is you're not expected to read it. You don't know Chinese. You can't read it. There's no way you can read it. But because you know English Chinese characters, what do you think maybe it means, right? Like, what could you infer from it, or what would you guess about it? So here is that sentence. And sometimes it might completely perfectly match the English sentence, right? You would have these sort of, for lack of a better term, like Hama sentences, like just, a cross-language grammatical written form perfectos, right? It would work. This is not a case where it would work, though. What does the sentence say? Well, the Chinese translation is, you love me. That would be the Chinese translation of the Chinese text. But the English Chinese characters, if you were reading these characters in English, they actually say, you love I, right? Because I and me are different characters. And if you read, you love I, is that a grammatical English sentence? No, of course not. That's awkward or just, wrong. And so, just to give you a taste of the kind of things that we are going to do in the future, we can resolve this issue, and we can turn this actual Chinese sentence into an actual English sentence by working with the periphery of the character. So if you just draw a line, a sort of L-pronged line, on the left and bottom periphery of the character I, it becomes me. And we're going to use the periphery to demonstrate these inflections in English, right? Pluralization or subject-verb agreement, all these sort of little tricks that English does, syntactically that Chinese does not do, morphologically, we are going to, have these little cheats to make it work, and it will work. So thank you for staying with me through this, and I hope you practice writing and, go through the quiz, keep, practicing these characters before you move on to the next lesson, because everything is going to be cumulative, and what you learn in lesson 1 will be found in lesson 4 or lesson 7. And then at this rate, if you're learning 10 characters a lesson, after 20 lessons, you're going to know 200 characters. And, if you only need 3,000 to read a newspaper in Chinese, think of how quickly, especially a child, could just absorb all this. I think rather fast. So again, we're cutting out the middleman of second language learning, and we're just going straight to character building, right? Pun intended. So thanks for staying with me, and I'll see you next time.